Hi, I'm Mina Malik Hussain, and you're watching The Coffee Table. And today, and I always say it's exciting, but it is like super exciting, and having a slight fangirl moment, and you will know why in 1 second. Because today on The Coffee Table, we are talking about the unsung hero of the media industry, and I want to know more about where we're going with it, what is the future of it. And I also want to talk a little bit about our heyday with it, this mystery thing. We're talking about radio in Pakistan. And I'm delighted to welcome on set with me today actor and radio jockey Khalid Malik, who obviously needs no introduction to anyone who's ever listened to the radio in the last 10 years or so in Pakistan, and Talha Farooq, who is a communications expert, a voiceover artist, and has been working in radio for 5 years and trains people and does all sorts of really interesting things. Hello, welcome to the show, both of you.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope you can all hear me and see me.
Yes, we can. This is extremely exciting because I feel like radio has been such an important part of our sort of media history and our interaction and our kind of exposure to a larger world has started through radio. And I know that the history of radio in Pakistan and sort of how we began is a really sort of interesting one. So Talha, tell me a little bit more about sort of, you know, where did we begin? And obviously this is post-partition because that's when Radio Pakistan happened.
Before that, I want to give a disclaimer thingy that I am having a big time, starstruck moment because of, there's Khalid. We used to look up to him a lot and listen to everything. And then you, obviously, who brings up a lot of, energy to topics which are actually which can be quite dry at times.
It's a triangulation of starstruck moments.
Yeah. So about the thing, and thank you for inviting me because, such topics need to be addressed, especially when it comes to documentary making and film studies and radio.
Yes.
I'm very energetic about these things.
Yeah.
About the past thing that we inherited it in form of All India Radio. And then, it's exciting. I tell my students as well that the announcement of it becoming Pakistan Radio Services was actually just a tad bit before the announcement of Pakistan. It went like Mustafa Hamdani Sab, he said that, this is Pakistan Radio Service and congratulations, for
the dawn of freedom.
The dawn of freedom and everything. And since that time, there have been 4 to 5 decades afterwards that were really crucial for Pakistan Radio. In fact, for the people of Pakistan, you all know about that. There was a relocation of all the refugees going on, and then the announcements used to be through the radio, and then after that there were the war years, and during the war years there are still archives on YouTube. You can listen to that. All the audiences can listen to that. That they used to be announcements, and people used to get energized after listening to those announcements.
Quite right. And not just announcements, but you had Noor Jahan singing, and people would just get so sort of pumped up by that a lot of young men just enlisted, and that was all radio.
And they used to listen to the songs in the war fields, battlefields, and everything. So we have quite a long history, but this is something that all of us know about. We have heard about Ma'am Noor Jahan singing, and she used to leave her kids at home, and they used to be shelling, and she used to get concerned that will they be fine or not. Mehdi Hassan Saab also sang a very beautiful national song. But during those times, it was Pakistan was getting back into this was an agricultural country, and people used to get agricultural information that started right away.
So the role of the radio wasn't just entertainment; it was also
it was information in economy, in finance, in the agriculture, and the industry was just budding, and they were like some really good advertising trends that were coming up. And then, of course, the storytelling part. There used to be, Ashfaq Ahmad Saab used to write, and I would want the audience to listen to that thing called Talqeen Shah. It's still on YouTube.
What is that?
I was listening to it the other day, and it was a satire about the whole thing, the social norms and values that were going on.
So it was a play.
Time. And
or it was a sort of like a sketch show.
It was a play. It was kind of a
sorry,
play.
I'm just sort of interrupting because, again, our own technology that we have to sort of like physically jump between people. Yes, Khalid, you wanted to say something.
No. I'm just listening into the conversation and Talha's insight. So no, I'm having a great time just sitting back and watching the two of you.
Yeah, isn't it nice?
So I'm loving it.
Isn't it nice to be cool, on the listening end of things?
I know. At home, I'm just waiting for my cup of chai, and I'm listening to this. So, but I just wanted to point out what Talha was saying. It's nice to look back at history, and it's nice to look back at how we started, and it's nice to look back at the impact that radio had, and it's a trip down memory lane, and it really serves, in my opinion, no other purpose right now but just a trip down memory lane and a bit of feel-good nostalgia. But the truth of the matter is that we have evolved from then.
Oh, yes.
We have come a long way from then, and we are faced with different challenges today. I think it is those challenges that radio is dealing with right now, that we're all sort of dealing with it together as a collective.
Absolutely.
It reminds me, my corporate career started off in sales, and one of the things that we would be trained about when we were training in sales is that you don't want to be the person that says, back in 1971, I made $1 million worth of sales. Yeah, but that doesn't matter anymore. What are you doing today? So, whilst it's nice to revisit and remind ourselves of some of the beginnings and the humble beginnings, but I'm one that believes in constant evolution and seeing where we are with radio right now.
Quite right, and we've got the rest of the show for that. So what I do wanted to sort of, coming back to, history, is that the radio has historically served many purposes. And internationally, this was the case as well. And that's also a time where sort of, and Khalid is right in the sense that, back in the day, that was the only technology that there was. So there was a lot of emphasis on radio because that was the only thing they had. So whether it was the BBC or it was Radio Pakistan or, all these other radio services.
The pattern was pretty much the same. And so Khalid is right. I keep on referring to him as sir because
it's
even
okay.
We'll
my sort of pretend that he's been knighted.
He's right. It's good to have a reference point. It's good to look back at it. And the thing that you just said, it was the same pattern because of the literacy rate at that time. But newspaper was supposed to be luxury that only the educated people could actually afford. So even in Pakistan, whether you're a farmer or you are an industrialist or belonging to any field of life, radio used to serve at that time, and people used to gather all the infotainment thing through radio. So why we look back at the past, because at times it's good to know where we started from. And I was quite mesmerized the other day. Somebody was talking about it in a seminar as well, that something that started just to send signals to ships for naval purposes, and it had evolved so much. That's the beauty of it, that actually it started off for sending signals to ships far off in the sea. And now it has evolved so much that industry or education or, the literary purposes or the poems or the songs or everything that is disseminated on it.
I also feel like clearly, like you said, it started out in a very sort of prosaic way, very sort of functional, practical thing that, okay, this is what we're going to do. But it's obviously evolved into a really lasting way of communicating with people, because maybe there's just something really intimate about voice. And hearing someone's voice and connecting with them, and even though you can't see them and you can't speak back to them, you can hear them. And there's something sort of quite lovely in that. And I think maybe, Khalid, what do you think?
Yeah, it's lovely until you meet them. And then,
well,
a lot of times people say, Acha, we thought you'd be maybe in your 50s, bald and muscular.
Muscular also. And
you're none of that. So burst my bubble. But it's right. It's so true, right? I mean, there's a magic about the voice, and there's a magic about a telephonic conversation. There's a magic about just a conversation without any visual. There's magic because the mind. It's radio is considered the theater of the mind, and it's playing with all of your senses. You know, imagine this person must be this way. I imagine this person must be a following way, and I imagine that this is what they smell like, and imagine this is what this must be. It's just because it's such a plaything with your senses. That's one of the pieces that's so magical. But I just wanted very quickly to talk about, you know, the intimacy. I mean, I remember, you know, the initial FM 100 days, and the entire family, and I mean the entire family, would, your puppies, your khalas, and your chachas, and your cousins in front of the radio, wanting to put that call through, you know,
it was so exciting.
It was. You know, and that's the intimacy, that's the beauty of radio. It brings families together.
Yeah. And do you think it's also kind of harkens back? Maybe there is some sort of human primal instinct in us to want to hear other people speak. And, you know, maybe that's why we love stories so much. And oral narratives are still so special to us. And maybe it's just a very human thing that you like listening to a nice voice telling you, you know, nice things.
Exactly. You know, I also... It's all coming back to me now because we have been studying about
like
radio.
Like a Celine Dion song.
Yeah, precisely. And, you know, back in the day, the audition of radio used to be something so difficult to pass. I remember Rehana Siddiqui, you know, the family, Arfa Siddiqui, and they have been huge names of Pakistan's entertainment industry. She was telling in one of the interviews then when she wanted to audition for a radio, what happened was the head of radio at that time said that you have to say the word no, as in nahi. I know you have to say the word no in 10 to 15 different ways.
Inflections, wow.
And why was that so? Because the radio at that time was not just confined to radio shows.
Yes.
It was actually much more than that. There was documentary, there was radio play, there was radio feature and everything of that sort. So you had to know how to emote without, without, you know, getting onto a camera or screen. You have to get the audience or the listeners the feel as if they are there.
Yes, absolutely.
So it was very difficult at that time. And, you know, even today, you know, I don't want to annoy Sir Khalid because we are talking too much about the past as well, and he's quite well aware because let me tell him if he's listening to me. I hope
he is listening to you. Yes.
That whenever I teach my students about radio, I keep on referring to his shows quite a lot, the kind of natural feel that he brings into his shows, and then we'll get back to FM later on. You know, with FM, another thing because we are going to cut to that when FM came in. The beauty about FM, one of the things was there was a two-way flow of communication, as we say in theoretical terms. Which is,
what does two-way mean?
Two-way flow means that feedback, the element of feedback, that telephones were also getting, getting into practice at that time, and people wanted to talk to the radio presenters and wanted to give them the feedback about whatever the topic was being discussed. So it was the new thing. They used to send their, the songs they wanted to listen to, the topics they wanted to talk about, and they wanted to give feedback about, because there was so much inside them in 90s at that time, especially with reference to Pakistan, in the world over, things were different already. So this two-way flow gave them another form of enticing element that they wanted to speak about things.
So like that kind of development in technology then sort of changed what people's sort of, let's say, interaction or association with the radio. Technology helped in doing that.
And also the reach increased due to the technology. Like it was not just confined to a few radio stations run by the state media. It was actually a lot of radios now and now it has evolved to a point that every district is supposed to have a radio station.
Because then obviously if that's how you get access to it.
It's troubled at the moment.
Yes, we're going to talk about trouble in just one second. We're going to take a very quick break and come back to this fascinating conversation. Stay with us. Hi, welcome back to the coffee table. We're talking to Talha, Farooq and Khalid Malik about radio in Pakistan. So Khalid, now that we're sort of moving into the future, or the present, as it were, tell me about your experience with radio, whether you are an actor as well, which is a sort of visual, form of creative interaction with an audience. But then you also do radio and you're extremely good at it, if I may say so. So sort of what drew you to radio?
You're very generous. Thank you. And Talha, thank you very much. I'm actually trying to find Khalid, sir. I don't know where he is. Khalid, sir! And, I'll find him
Arise, Sir Khalid.
Arise. I actually initially trained as an actor.
Yes.
I never thought that radio would become my thing, my livelihood, my career. This was back in 2000 when I finished my diploma in acting. I wasn't living here. I was living in Melbourne. I moved to Sydney in 2004, and I don't believe in accidents. And if you had spoken to me maybe 12 years ago, I would have probably said, yeah, I got into it by accident, but I don't believe in accidents. And I very simply, I was in Sydney. I went into a production house. It was an Indian production house, and they did a lot of Bollywood productions. And I went there to present myself as an actor. And the CEO at the time, was still the CEO, said, have you done radio? And I said no. And he asked me if I could speak a bunch of languages, and obviously I said yes. And he said, listen, why don't you go to the top floor and give us an audition? So I did, and I went to give an audition, and the person that was taking the audition, she was a presenter out of India, and she's still a friend of mine and mentor of mine, Saleh Absin. And she said, listen, there's the computer, write a script, come back and let's hear you. So I did. I was thinking, I don't know what this is, what will become of this. But I wrote my little script in very sort of, proper Urdu. And I was thinking, I'm going to impress the socks out of these people. So I came and I did my audition, and I ended, because it was a Hindi/Urdu based network. I ended my, everyone has a particular ending.
Yes.
And I remember during the audition, I ended it by saying, and I'm going to use the exact same words that I used. And I ended it by saying, "Aur main hu aapka chahita Khalid Malik." And I remember at the end of the audition, she said, not bad, not bad. And then what she also said was, "Abhi tum kisi ke chahite nahi ho." And I was like, back to the ego.
Oh no! She put you in your place. No one loves you, Khalid.
And on the inside, my ego was like just shattered. But it was such a humbling lesson, and that lesson has stayed with me for the rest of my career to date.
Yes.
That you're only as good as your last show. You're only as good as your last break. What are you doing after that, and what are you doing now? Because everybody, including myself, we are replaceable. And if we go on thinking in this egoic kind of mindset that I am all of that, and I am the queen, and I am the king, nothing will become of you. But to stay in that place where, listen, I can be replaced at any single moment, that keeps my drive alive. That keeps me alive as an actor and as a radio presenter. So that was my first audition. Talha was talking about auditions. But that's how. So 2004 is when I began my career in radio, and I liked it so much that I went and became qualified. I went and got a certification, and I became a qualified radio presenter. And that's something I believe in too. If you want to make something your career, your livelihood, then go and get some training. Go and get some foundational training. I think that is key, and that's something that we really miss here in Pakistan, Maybe that'll change. But that 2004 is when I first started.
Yeah. Yes, Talha. I see you sort of taking a breath.
Yeah, he's very much right about it, that there is a lack of training institutes for this medium in particular. But
but that medium in particular, something I'm curious about is that, do you think that it's a general kind of lack of academic interest in the arts, or do you think that radio, out of all the arts, radio is at the lowest rung, and people think that, well, you just have to go and speak?
People do think that way. Yeah, that's very, very true about it. But about the training part,
yes, and this is something that you do with students.
Yeah, because at University of the Punjab or Beacon House National University, or at FC, or a lot of other institutions, even at Karachi, they do try to train people. But what happens is, when those students go into the mainstream, the training is all about what should sell. It's not about what sells.
Oh,
you know how it goes. You're supposed to finish every sentence till the last word. Right. It's going to sound very theoretical, but the helping verb in Urdu is in the last of the sentence. Right. So if the hai is not clear enough, we school them that you have to say the last word properly. You have to enunciate it in proper manner. That's rightfully put. And there are other small things like that, but when they go into the mainstream, they feel difficulty. They face difficulty because that's not what the audience want to listen to these days. It's very difficult because that's why people think that they are just speaking.
It seems casual.
Yeah, it seems casual, but that's what sells. I think Sir Khalid has a lot of input about that as well, because you have to be natural on FM, on radios. That's what sells. That's what people want to listen to. They want to connect with the person. But at the same time, there should be a line drawn between what should sell and what sells. You have to get them to overlap.
But do you think it's also important to have a kind of technical know-how of the ins and outs of radio in order to understand how to deliver whatever is required?
It's very important because, telling my story a little bit, not too much.
We love stories. We want to hear all the stories.
We have the Sydney connections. Khalid Saab doesn't know because I was also in Sydney, and there was a show called Kyle and Jackie, a show in Australia, and they get into trouble all the times because they say a stereotypical joke on air quite often, Kyle, and then he gets into trouble. A thing that Pakistanis should also focus on.
Think about.
Yeah, especially when they are talking on radio. They call on radio, they want to tell a joke, and then the joke is about some stereotype that shouldn't be on air. So this is something that will obviously happen with time. But when I came back from Sydney, I started radio. They sent me to a far-off small district, Mandi Bahauddin. We were talking about it before, and there was this FM 94 over there. Yeah. It took me 2 years to make them discover that, radio is not just about having fun. Right. You can learn with fun. And for that, technical knowledge is needed. Somebody said to me, some senior said to me that what do you know? You haven't even studied journalism, because I came back from Australia with a degree in econometrics.
Right. So which is very much not journalism.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. So I said, okay, I learned about journalism. Yes. I came to Lahore, and then I did 3 degrees in journalism. And after that, I came to know that, yes, you should have some technical knowledge about it.
It is important.
You should know what to say and when to say and when to put a full stop.
And I'm interested in what you just said about a senior at the radio station saying that obviously their focus was more on entertainment.
Yes,
and that's really interesting to me. Khalid, when you kind of came onto the radio scene, and I feel like that was kind of like, with FM 100, that was, at least for me, the sort of comeback of radio in our kind of collective consciousness, where we actively began to listen to it in the car or on, your deck. We'd sort of tune in to FM 100 and listen to the tunes. So what's the scene? How has the scene evolved since then, in your experience?
So I'm an entertainer out and out. So my interest is not the news and current affairs. Yeah. So my interest has always been with entertainment. And just to touch on what you said before, I think, I listen to a lot of radio in Pakistan and outside of Pakistan. I think it's true. The sad thing is that radio has really become this ignored child who isn't being given the time of day. And as a result, a lot of people, young boys and girls will come and, you know what, I'm going to go, I'm going to do some buck and get my little check at the end of the month, and I'll be sweet. And in the meantime, I'll pursue what I really want to pursue. And it's an attitude that is held by some radio presenters, not all. We have a handful of radio presenters across Pakistan who take this very seriously and take the profession very seriously. But we've also got advertisers who are kind of ignoring the importance of radio and so on. So I think because they're sort of down at the bottom of this, one of the bottom rungs of the ladder, we kind of tend to get ignored. And my push has always been to be that voice, along with a bunch of presenters who voice every morning, afternoon, and evening. This is a medium you cannot ignore, and you should not ignore, because it's vital. It plays a vital role in community building, and it plays a vital role in your society, which is why you keep mentioning Australia. Australia is one of those countries where radio is a thriving industry, and it is a very well-paid industry, and so it's taken very seriously, and it is an industry. I'm a fortunate few, a part of this handful of presenters that might fall into this category, but my aim is is to get the voice out so that it's no longer ignored. Coming to your question about how it's evolved immensely. Radio is no longer deck and car.
Yeah.
Radio is mobile phone. It's laptops, notebooks, iPads, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. It's everything now. Everything is radio.
Yeah.
It knows no limit, to be honest.
Is that the term for it? Digital radio?
Yeah, that is a term for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like, internationally as well, people, the podcast people is another form of radio that has really sort of made a massive impact on people's listening attitudes as well. And there are a lot of like radio plays that have done really well in podcast form. So why are we so late to the podcast party?
I think because it's radio, right? Everyone wants to be an actor. Everyone wants to be a model. No one really says, I want to be a radio presenter. And podcasting, you're absolutely right. It is huge everywhere else in the world. And people that are great at it are making a lot of money from podcasting, advertising on podcasts. So it's a medium that is growing in Pakistan, and there are a lot of people who are experimenting and tinkering with podcasting, which is great. And, there's so many apps available now, which makes it so much easier to just put your podcast out to a bunch of distributors. So it's definitely a growing market.
Yeah. But do you think that language also factors into this, where a lot of people might not be interested in an English podcast? I mean, the radio audience is a much more sort of diverse and more egalitarian one in many respects.
I mean, it depends on if it's regional radio or urban or rural radio. But in language, it's whatever you're comfortable with. I feel. I mean, I've been doing the English format for a long time, and so I'm most comfortable with that.
Yeah.
If I was put into a radio format, it might take me a little more time to readjust. So it's whatever you're comfortable with. And I think a lot of the times where we fall is we get into a language that we're not comfortable with, and we can hear that you're not comfortable with it, and that's when we run into trouble. So best to stick with what you're comfortable with. It doesn't mean that you're right or wrong.
Yeah.
It means that you'll engage with an audience, regardless of what your language is, as long as you are comfortable with it.
Right. And then that sort of authenticity will show. Yes, Talha.
Sorry,
I love it when people take a breath because, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that's actually very thoughtful of you. Okay. About the thing that Khalid Saab just said, people really want to be an actor and a model, and they want to, be there on the screen and everything. Again, back in the day, Ashfaq Ahmed Saab, Sir Ashfaq Ahmed said that at that time, he wanted to write for radio and wanted his voice on the radio so badly that he said that in those days, he used to think that even the highest ranking officer, he used to place the radio presenters way above them. And he used to think that he wanted to reach that level.
Yeah.
We have this activity of doing seminars in our institute at ICS, Punjab University, and we advertised it just a little bit that some RJs are coming, and we wrote their names as well. There was Ijaz Voice, Seemal, and Suhesh Shabi was hosting it, and a lot of other people. And it's a small hall. We thought that we have to drag people in to come and sit and listen to the seminars, but the turnout was so huge that we wanted.
That's fantastic.
We had to grab chairs from the classrooms, from the upstairs, from everywhere. People were standing on the doors to listen to them because there is a niche for them. Same goes for podcast. Right. Whether it's in English or Urdu, if the same people who are working, who are the big names of this industry, if they come up with any language podcast, be it English, Urdu, or Punjabi, anything in this part of the country or in any other developing country of the world where podcasts are not that much accessible. And, it's not just Apple anymore. You can go to Spotify and Google Play Music and iHeartRadio and a lot of other apps of that sort. You don't have to invent a niche in Pakistan for such things. You have to discover the niche because we have people who want to know about agricultural stories, who want to know about economic betterment stories, who want to know about people who are fighting other social pressures.
So
Unfortunately,
there's like a really diverse range of interests that audiences have.
People will relate to that. Unfortunately, what happens in our radios, not all the RJs, I keep on saying it time and again, and this is again a sentence from Khalid Saab's interview. He would relate to that even if the RJs are some of the RJs, even if they are working in a substandard manner, it doesn't mean that you have to discourage them. You have to tell them that you have to...
There's always room for improvement, and we should like
Ps.
keep trying.
You have to prepare, and prepare.
Okay, so there's really just one P, three times.
These are his words. We keep on relating it to the
So we're just going to cut to a very quick break and continue this amazing conversation. Remember your 3 Ps in the meantime. We'll see you in a minute. Hi, welcome back. We're still talking to Talha, Farooq and Khalid Malik about radio in Pakistan. And Khalid, what is the future now? How can we sort of keep growing radio? And clearly there's an interest, and clearly there are different kinds of audiences who are very interested in radio and podcasts and sort of variants of this form. So right now, what do you feel are the impediments that radio is facing in terms of growth? What's holding us?
There are many things that are holding us back, and obviously one of them is the idea of licensing. There is a discussion underway right now with the governing bodies, and I think I think we're headed in the right direction.
Right.
And I think all parties concerned have realized that, listen, we need to step to the plate together so that we can allow for radio to evolve to the meaning that it was what it once was, and something even bigger. But for that to happen, we need help at the federal level so that all the governing bodies can come together and say, listen, let's just sort out what we need to sort out so that we can get this to a certain, leveling. In terms of, because I'm so removed from politics, I'm only concerned about the show. I'm only concerned about what we as individuals who are working as technicians or as presenters can do, and what we can really do is begin to innovate. And I use that very cautiously, because innovation is such a buzzword. What does it actually mean? We're not talking reinventing the wheel.
Right.
We're talking about, listen, this is what you have. How do we build on this? How do we build on that? And how do we build on that? So that we make radio an exciting format, an entertaining format, and that complements social media, that complements Facebook and Instagram and digital platforms, and so that everything is complemented. We've done it where I am at F91, where we've live streamed shows, to give the audience that added interactive medium and give a feel for what happens inside. It's just about innovating, and how can I build on this tomorrow so that it's better than yesterday. And so that's how I work. How can I build on what I just did this morning? How can I make it better tomorrow? And really, there's no rocket science. It's really, and Talha's touched on this, it's about being authentic. You've touched on the word authentic. And what does that mean? It means that you, Mina, Talha, you have a unique voice. I'm hearing that unique voice, and that unique voice is a whole bunch of experiences that come together in this particular moment. And if a presenter can realize and recognize this, then it just makes for much better conversation. It makes for a much better show. And that's one. And then the other aspect is the advertiser, is getting the advertiser back on board and saying, hey, listen, this is a format that is listened. A lot of people say, who listens to the radio? Yeah, you might not listen to radio, but there are a million others that listen to radio, because I hear them and I speak to them every single day, as do other presenters. And unfortunately, a lot of the people that are marketers, who consider themselves marketers, aren't really doing the market research, don't really know where we are as a market, unless they actually go out and listen to the market. But who has the time to do that, right? So we just rely on what someone said, or what friends say, or friends don't say, and we base our decisions on that. So it's about convincing the advertiser that, listen, this is a viable format, this is a viable medium, you need to reinvest and bring your ads onto this so we can all grow. And people do listen to radio and still listen to radio. There is no formal rating system in Pakistan. Anyone that says that does is not based on fact. And so a lot of what happens, of what people perceive, is based on perception and market surveys and so on.
Yeah.
So that's my view. It's about getting, so the short answer of that is getting the governing bodies together to say, yep, let's work together and let's negotiate these licensing fees. And then the other bit is getting the advertisers on board and saying, listen, we can't do it without you or without you. We all need to come together, because we can't be the one country in the world that says goodbye to radio when everywhere else in the world radio is thriving. So why can't we thrive here?
Absolutely. And I feel, and this is sort of coming back to the sort of olden days, is that at one point in like the 60s, the radio was broadcasting Shakespeare plays and Chekhov plays and Imtiaz Ali Taj plays and Agha Khasha plays.
It was like played on that.
And there was so much sort of intellectual conversation happening, and there was a lot of, even again, useful educational material
the radio again gave the TV industry and the film industry a lot of artists all over the world as well, and Pakistan as well. Actually, there's nothing better to say to top up what Khalid Sahab has just said. But again, another pressure that my students and my contemporaries at that time they faced was the payment factor to the RJs. They get RJs who are working really hard. They are working because of the passion that they have for radio, not because of the pay that they get. It's very difficult done. It's very difficult. They actually are doing it just for some exposure and some learning.
Or they genuinely enjoy doing it, but it's very hard to be innovative and kind of really committed in a long-term way. This is actually a really important thing.
We train people at our institutes, and later on, all those voiceover artists and all those RJs end up joining TV, because ultimately they have to get bread and butter on their tables. And another thing which is impeding is I'm sorry to say, but I have to mention it. The thing that some of the very senior people of the past, yes, it is good to be perfect in linguistics and everything, but at times there are different genres on radio. The trend that something that is going to sell from 8 to 10 slot and the drive time slot and the morning slot, it doesn't have to be that perfect. It has to be fine. There is a difference between being natural and being informal. You can be natural. And you can, I can tell you just a little story, not too long, but in the beginning days, what happened was that an on-air call came in, and it was a song that was playing. We used to handle everything on our own. So by mistake, the mic was still switched on when the song was playing, and the voice went on. We used to put them on hold before taking them on.
And that was sort of didn't happen.
It was heard. And the station.
What were they saying?
No, I was just talking, who is it? And then, just hold on and everything. And my station manager called me and told me, you have to switch off the mic. And I did. When I came back, I started laughing and I said that, sometimes on radio, I'm a human after all. And you also do mistakes. And that's being natural. So being informal, what RJs do, and that's why they are looked down upon. There is more to life than relationship problems. They keep on discussing it all the times on radio, and it's not just that we have to sell ultimately.
We have to kind of keep, and I really feel like it's also, at least for the creative arts, and I include radio in this completely squarely, is that you also kind of educate your audience as well. And I feel like if you give them high quality material, whether it's on TV or it's on radio or it's anywhere else, then audiences will enjoy that. And I don't think we should underestimate the intelligence of the average
They are very intelligent.
Person.
Pakistani audience and the audience all over the world who are in developing countries and other countries, they are intelligent because they are thinking beings. They know that.
And this is also where I think, like what Khalid mentioned, is that advertisers and marketers, this is something that they should be paying attention to, is that you can have a sophisticated audience, and that if and a successful product will be successful if you believe in it and you give it a chance, because the numbers are clearly there.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Talha. Thank you, Khalid, for being on the show, talking to me. See, I had to fangirl right at the sort of last minute. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to listen to your local radio channel. Call the RJs, interact. They love it. We love it. You know, huzzah for radio. And we will see you next time on the coffee table. Bye now.